Hello, my name is Julie, and today I'm going to be talking about the books that I have acquired over the last 2-ish months. So I made a book haul not that long ago because I knew my birthday and graduation was going to be coming up, so I would be acquiring quite a few books. And lo and behold, I have, so I decided to make another one. I'm going to be filming in 2 locations, so please bear with me as I go through the 3 categories of book. The first category is the most exciting. That is books that were sent to me by the publisher. Now, I've had that in the past, but I am now working with Tor, which is the most exciting thing that's ever happened to me. I have done their books on NetGalley before, but I finally contacted them, and it is a title by title basis, but I have been approved to get physical copies from them now. The first of these I'm going to talk about is a final copy that I got from them, and that is Fractal Noise by Christopher Paolini. This is another book in the Fractal verse. So Christopher Paolini made the Aragon books, and a couple years ago it came out with this sci-fi epic, To Sleep in a Sea of Stars, and I read that a couple years ago and enjoyed it. This is a book in the same universe, but it is another entry point. It takes place 23 years before To Sleep in a Sea of Stars, and while that is like a sci-fi opera epic, this is a shorter sci-fi thriller. This is First Contact. We have a crew who is on a planet and they discover signs of sentient life. The synopsis is pretty vague, but I think that a shorter book in this series will really do it for me. So I'm very excited to have this finished copy, and this just came out on May 16th, so you can find this in bookstores everywhere. I also did get an e-copy from them of He Who Drowned the World by Shelley Parker Chan, which is so exciting. I read She Who Became the Sun last year and absolutely loved it, and this is the conclusion to that duology. This is a Chinese-inspired fantasy where the main character is based on China's only female emperor. In the first book, our main character is from a poor family and there's a drought going on, everyone's dying, and she is destined for nothingness, but her brother is destined for greatness. So when her entire family ends up dying, she takes on her brother's identity, becomes a monk, and starts accumulating power. And this was such a fantastic character study type book. I love the taut politics of this. This is one of my top anticipated releases for the year, and it comes out in August, and I will definitely be reading it before then and talking to you guys all about it. Back in my apartment, I have the 3rd book that was sent to me by Tor. So exciting. This is Mammoths at the Gate by Ni Vo. This is the 4th book in the Singing Hills cycle, which is a series of novellas that are fantasy, Asian inspired, and they are all entry points into the series. You can read them in any order, and they are all about a monk named Chi whose job is to collect the stories of different people throughout the world. So in this specific volume, Chi is returning to the monastery as their mentor has passed away, and some changes are coming to the monastery and they are dealing with their own grief. I just read The Empress of Salt and Fortune after wanting to get around to it for a readathon for forever, and I really enjoyed it, but these are very beautifully written, they're fairy tale-esque, and I'm excited to read more of Chi's story. And the second group of books that I want to talk about are the books that were gifted to me by my friends and family. These were birthday gifts. The first book that I'm going to talk about is Maybe in Another Life by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Taylor Jenkins Reid is one of my favorite authors. I have read 4 of her books, and 3 of them have been 5 stars. Through pure coincidence, I'm probably going to get through 3 of her books very soon. And I'm currently rereading Daisy Jones and the Six because I just finished the show and loved it, but this is one of her early releases. I love these newer released editions, and I love what they look like, all the spines together. But this is about our main character, Hannah, who is kind of a drifter in life, has changed a lot of her big life decisions, and hasn't felt rooted anywhere. She goes out one night and is offered a ride home from 2 different people, and we follow her in 2 timelines. one where she goes home with one person and one where she goes home with the other person. And this creates a very large butterfly effect of how her life changes just based on this one decision. And I know that she falls in love with somebody different in each timeline. So I think this is going to be really interesting. I love books that play with time and choices and that sort of thing. So I think that this is the one that I'm most excited for of all her backlist titles. I was going out on a limb when I said I was interested in this one, but this is Icebreaker by Hannah Grace. This is a recent book talk favorite, but this is a college romance book about a figure skater and the captain of the hockey team. She is training for the Olympics, and her partner ends up getting injured, and the hockey player, who they don't get along very well, has to fill in as her partner. I haven't heard any bad reviews of this book, and I am a big hockey fan, so I'm thinking that I have a good chance of liking this. I really want to like one of these book talk romances. Is it gonna happen? We'll see. A little bit of a different one, I got Wide Sargasso Sea by Jean Rhys. This is a modern classic that is a reimagining of Jane Eyre, which is one of my favorite books of all time, one of my top 3 classics of all time. This is about one of the characters from Jane Eyre. It is from her perspective and how she is done wrong by society. She is ripped away from her life and married off to somebody else, and she is essentially driven to madness. And this is a really short book, but I've heard only fantastic things about this, and I already love Jane Eyre, so I'm really excited about this. And also, this cover is my everything. I love this color. I love when we have greenery. I love a covered face. Obsessed. And then I got Happy Place by Emily Henry. So I have read 2 of Emily Henry's romance books. I feel like most of hers, except People We Meet on Vacation, have been really divisive on if people like them. I have given 4 and 3 stars to them. I still have yet to read Beach Read, but it's on the roster. But this is her most recent summery romance, and it is about a couple who is going on their yearly vacation with their friends. It's kind of their last hurrah with their college friends. But the thing is that they broke up 6 months ago and haven't told their friends about it. So it's a second chance romance, which is a trope that I really like. We probably will, but I really hope that we flip back and forth between before and after the breakup, so we see them getting together in the first place. But I have high hopes for this one. So funnily enough, I got a bunch of contemporary and romance type books from my family, so I decided to buy myself a bunch of fantasy books to balance it out. I feel like this year I've been very chill about acquiring books, but that stopped. So unfortunately, a very popular bookseller, Book Depository, went out of business. When it came to international sales of popular books, they were one of the largest competitors for Amazon, so it is very sad that they went out of business. I ended up picking up 4 books as they were closing their doors, so I'm trying to get these in an order that makes sense. I know what the biggest book has to be, so let me unbox this with you. Okay, there we go. Okay, so this is Assassin's Quest by Robin Hobb. This is the 3rd and final book in the Farseer trilogy, which is the first trilogy in an expansive series in this world. But in this trilogy, we follow Fitz, who is the bastard child of the Crown Prince, and when it is announced that he exists, the Crown Prince abdicates. Fitz is sent to live among the royal people, but he has a unique perspective, as though he is royal blood, he is not really royal, so he is hired to be the assassin for the ailing king. So in the first book, we follow a lot of his childhood and a little bit of his coming of age. That one had a lot of skipping in it, and I didn't love it as much, but the second book, the stakes were so high. I loved all that we learned about the magic, and I don't know. I know that Robin Hobb tortures her characters and everything, and knowing that only the second book had the stakes really high. I am so excited for this absolute chonker. I had to buy these copies. I think this is one of my favorite fantasy covers. These are not easy to get in America, so I'm glad that I could finally finish out this beautiful trilogy. I have a standalone, a first book in a series, and a second book in that series. I'm gonna guess that this one is the standalone. Let's see. I was right. This is Our Wives Under the Sea by Julia Armfield. This is a literary horror that I have been seeing everywhere that I absolutely have needed to get my hand on. I do not like the American cover nearly as much as I love this cover. I wish I had it without this pink border, but this is exactly what I wanted. This is about a woman whose wife was in a submarine on a secret mission for several years, and she comes back changed, and our main character is trying to figure out what that's all about. I love literary horror. It's one of my newfound favorite genres, and something about this screams 5 stars to me. I'm calling it now. If I'm wrong, you know, it wouldn't be the first time. Now the question is, can I get these two in the right order? I'm gonna try this one first, please. I was wrong, dang it. Let me open the other one as well. Yes, I finally bought the Bridge Kingdom books. Back in 2021, I listened to the Bridge Kingdom on audiobook for Friendathon, a readathon I've hosted a couple times based on reading your friends' tastes. And the prompt specifically was to read a book on their TBR you've never heard of. And I picked this book out of the blue, knowing nothing about it, knowing it was a fantasy romance, and that was it. And this is one of my favorite fantasy romances of all time. And how this series is set up is that it is going to be a series of 3 duologies, each duology following a different couple, but there is an interconnected fantasy plot. And in our first book, our main character, Lara, has been raised from a very young age with all of her sisters in isolation to become the best assassin possible. And the king, their father, will choose at the right time which of them will get married off to a rival king with the task of killing them. And Lara finds out that all the sisters who don't get picked are going to be killed. So she fakes all of her sisters' deaths and goes herself, as she thinks it's the ultimate sacrifice to give up her life for this cause. She has an arranged marriage with this king of this kingdom who has been starving her people for forever, and she's gonna take him down. But things aren't as they seem, of course. Both The Bridge Kingdom and The Traitor Queen made my best books of the year. I do love the audiobook so much. I think it is the way to consume it, but I wanted to own these to support the author and also to have them on my physical shelves. And I cannot wait for The Endless War book 4 to come out. And if it being in duologies scares you, like, oh, it's not going to be as good, the third book, which follows different characters, is just as good as these. The highest praise that I can give these books is that this is the best balance of fantasy and romance that I have read in so long. The romance is a good part of the plot, but the fantasy world is also so interesting, and the settings in these 2 books. We have a jungly island kingdom, and we have a desert that is going to kill you. If you haven't read these books, I don't know what you're doing, but... And then as a birthday graduation treat for myself, I went to my local indie bookstore and bought some brand new books. This is the first time this year that I have bought books for myself that were entirely full price. Kind of proud of that, but here's what we have. The first one is Yellow Face by R.F. Kuang. This is an anticipated release for me for sure, and for most of the internet, but it's also signed. I cannot believe I got my hands on this. I have read all of her releases, and Babel is one of my favorite books of the year. Easily one of the most well-written books I've read in a long time. But Yellowface is more of a dark comedy. This is about one of the most famous authors in the world, who is an Asian woman, is killed by her white former college best friend, and then that woman takes on her identity. This is one of those books where you hate every single character, and I think when I know that going into a book, that's something that I can really like. I think that I really like the literary aspects of R.F. Kuang's books, so I think this is going to be one that I'm going to have a lot of fun with and get angry at. And then I picked up, after so long, I've almost bought this book so many times, I finally got Stories of Your Life and Others by Ted Chiang. This is a sci-fi short story collection. Ted Chiang is beloved for his stories, and the main reason that I have been interested in this is because of the short story, Story of Your Life. That story was inspired by Slaughterhouse-Five by Kurt Vonnegut, which is one of my favorite books of all time, and that short story in turn inspired Arrival, the Amy Adams movie. It is my favorite movie of all time. I don't read a ton of short story collections, but this one is so well beloved, and I definitely wanted to have a physical copy of Story of Your Life so that it is something that I could reference again and again when I go back and watch the movie again and again like I do. Then I got A Desolation Called Peace by Arkady Martine. This is the sequel to a memory called Empire, which I read earlier this year, was a total surprise favorite of mine. It is about our main character Mahit, who comes from a small space station, and there is this giant empire who is trying to colonize all of the galaxy. She has been raised from a young age to be a diplomat to the empire and has learned so much about their culture and their language, but all of a sudden her predecessor is killed in a very suspect way, and she is suddenly sent to go do her job without the memories of her predecessor like she thought she would, and she has to go to the planet, manage all of these politics around people who definitely want her dead, and is trying to solve the murder of her predecessor. This has got a lot of cool technology. I think if you liked Babel, you will like this series because I read them shortly next to each other and they had similar discussions on colonization. I am very excited to get to this sometime soon. And then I got The Tiger's Daughter by Kay Arsenault Rivera. This was a recommendation from one of the people at the bookstore after I mentioned a lot of the East Asian fantasy that I've been living lately, and this was recommended. This is a sapphic Asian-inspired fantasy where we have different groups that are inspired by historical Japanese, Chinese, and Mongolian forces. It had been a minute since I've heard about this book, but I just decided to pick it up on a whim as a treat. I have no idea what I'm getting into with this book, but I have high hopes. I love surprising myself. And those are all of the books that I have acquired over the last couple of months or so. Thank you so much for watching. If you have read any of these books or want to read any of these books, maybe buddy read with me, please let me know because I would love to talk about every single one of these. If you would like to follow me anywhere, my link is in the description to everything that I do, everywhere I am on the internet. And as always, I will see you in the next one.